It's an unstoppable day, family. Hey, how are you? I'm Terrance, the unstoppable coach Leffridge, and you are watching another episode of the Next Level Living Show with Coach Terrance. Thank you so much for coming in this evening, coming into the Next Level Living Show, where we talk to ordinary people doing extraordinary things to live their life on the next level. This show was a creation of God through a vision given to me many years ago. A show that provide a platform to showcase those who need to be heard, those who have a message that they want to share with the world, those who, because mainstream media is so expensive and so hard to really get into, a show that would give them an inexpensive, easy way to reach the masses. So we're glad that you're here tonight because we've got another great show for you. We've got another internationally known author, speaker, and professional life and relationship coach that I can't wait to introduce to you and to reintroduce to some who already know her. But before we get started, as always, while you're here, we want you to be interactive with us. So if you look above you, you can see right now that you've got all the social media tabs that you can connect with the Next Level Living Show. You've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Google Plus, and you've also got Pinterest. Any one of those tabs above your head, just go ahead and click on them right now and let the world know that the Next Level Living Show with Coach Terrance is on the air. And hey, if you really want to get interactive, you can look down below and you'll see that you can interact with us in our Facebook chat room. Yes, the Next Level Living Show has the Facebook chat room. Just go ahead and click here. That's going to send you over to the chat room. And we just want you to put your name, where you're from, and if you've got a business or ministry that you want to promote at that point, do it right there because we would love to shout you out. And then you can ask any questions of our guests tonight in that chat room. Well, if you've been watching the Next Level Living Show, we've had some great guests in the past, and tonight is no different. We've got, as I said before, an internationally known author, speaker, and professional life and relationship coach. And her name is Kemi Sogunle. So let's tell you a little bit about Kemi. Kemi has been She's the author of two books. The first book is called Being Single. The latest book, rather, is called Being Single, A State of the Fragile Heart. And then the book prior to that was Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality, Real Life Issues About Relationship. She's an award-winning author, international speaker, listed as one of the 10 best dating coaches in the Maryland area by thumbtack.com. And she is the founder and CEO of the nonprofit organization Love Not Hurt, an organization that promotes self-development, building healthier and stronger relationships while living with purpose. And so it's going to be a great show tonight. We definitely know that you are going to be blessed. You're going to learn some things about loving yourself before getting into that relationship. And we are just so blessed to bring this information to you on the Next Level Living Show with Coach Terrance. So without any further ado, I want to bring on to the show our guest for this evening, the lovely Kemi Sogunle. Kemi, are you on the broadcast?
Hi everyone, I'm here. Hi Terrance.
Hey, how are you, young lady?
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of the Next Level Living Show. Reading your bio, you're doing so many different things. It's a wonder that you even had time to carve out some time for our viewers this evening. So thank you again for taking this time. I want to jump right into getting the audience to know who you are. So two questions I want you to answer. I want you to answer the first question is, what does it mean to you to be living life on the next level? And then take a couple of minutes, 2, 3, 5 minutes to let us know where you hail from, and who you are.
For me, living on the next level means being able to face my fears, being able to address any issues, painful past issues that I have, and being able to be real with myself, being able to overcome those obstacles, being able not to keep a single pain in my system, and connecting to my spirituality and allowing God to heal me while I also learn to forgive other people and love myself, to be able to prepare myself to love someone else. I went through a very bitter divorce that led me to finding myself, because prior to that, I didn't know who I was. And I just hopped in a relationship, and that left me broken. And after healing, during my healing process, I wrote 4 books. The first one, Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality, being published, already published, and it won an award. It won several awards this year. And also Being Single, A State for the Fragile Heart, which is the book I'm talking about tonight. And I also have 2 more books coming in. And it led me also to become a trained professional life and relationship coach, where I'm able to coach other people through the process of healing. I coach singles, I coach couples, I coach the divorcees, and I also coach the separated. Sometimes I have young adults come to me through their parents as well. Originally, I was from Nigeria. I moved in to the US with my ex-husband. I actually eloped, like I always tell people, I eloped. And when you elope without knowing what a relationship is all about, you get yourself in trouble. So in the long run, I found myself, and I'm on the path to helping other people find who they are, connect with their spirituality, and live the life God so desired for them to have.
Wow, that's a great synopsis. But let's dig a little bit deeper. I see those lovely kids in the pictures behind you. So, you said you are a divorcee.
Mhm.
Are you a mother as well?
Yes, I'm a mother. I have a 13-year-old son.
Okay. So, and by the way, the fact that you have a 13-year-old son and you look like you're 23, that's just amazing. But that's another topic for another time. Talk to us a little bit more, if you can, about how the relationship started that led to the elopement, that led to you coming to America with your now ex-husband, but now you're a divorcee. Take us through that a little bit deeper.
So for me, it was not knowing who I was. I went from my first relationship, which I also document in my book. I had a first boyfriend who actually raped me at age 17. And instead of me healing and addressing those issues, I went on into covering all that up and started to look for love in the wrong places. I didn't really date much. The next person I got with cheated on me. And that led me to also dating somebody else who cheated on me as well, because I wasn't willing to give myself up. And my ex boyfriend happened to know my ex husband. So that was how we met. And I just kind of consoled myself with my ex husband, not really knowing what it was to heal at that moment. And I ended up in a relationship that left me really broken, but led me to find who I am. So,
Wow. And it's good that there is a rainbow at the end of that storm, but let's stay in the storm for a little bit because you had a very traumatic event at the age of 17. And for many of us at 17, we don't know who we are, much less
mm-mm.
who we love or even how to love. So at the age of 17, did you have a definition for love?
No, I did not. I didn't even know what love was at that age. I think all at that age it was all infatuation. It was more about he's good looking, he has it all together on the outside, but we don't really know what's going on the inside. And I was invited to a party, and I ended up, it was his birthday party. I was invited over, and that was how I got myself raped. I couldn't talk about it. I had nightmares. There were nights where I cried myself to sleep, And I only confided in one of my very close friends who happened to die 2 months after that. So for me, I didn't have anybody to talk to anymore. I couldn't talk to my parents about it. I couldn't talk to my siblings about it. I kept it all on the inside. And what I realized from healing is when you have been through a traumatic experience, we kind of hide behind the fear of wanting anybody to know that we don't have it all together. So we live in fear of the unknown, and everything we do, because we have that fear. Fear drives you to make um unrealistic decisions, irrational decisions that actually lead you to become further broken. And for me, it was through finding myself that I realized that I wasn't able to think normally as I needed to, because I was trying to hide something. And when you try to hide behind fear, you punish yourself more.
Okay. And as we talk tonight, we're going to be weaving some of the great tips that she has in her 4 books into this conversation, and we'll also be talking about some of the nuggets that she shares in her coaching with different married couples through conflict resolution, through individuals that are in transition, whether it's a widowing situation, whether it's a divorcee, or whether it's a person who is just single and looking to be in a relationship. So, the one thing you started to touch on that's also in your book is you started to talk about fear. And there's different stages of fear depending on the person you're talking to at the
Mhm.
time and their current state of their situation. But you started talking about fear from the 17-year-old and not having anyone to talk to and not really knowing what love was about. And you said earlier off air that we really don't, no one really tells us about love or relationships.
Mhm.
Why don't you expound upon that a little bit more, especially for someone that was like you, who may be in their early, late teens and doesn't know about love or relationships yet?
So growing up, nobody teaches us about love. We kind of just mirror what we see in our parents, even though they may try to, put up a facade that they have it all together. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And we look up to role models, Hollywood actors and actresses. We look up to friends that are married. We look up to any uncle, aunties that are married and think that, yes, this is what marriage is all about, holding hands, being together. But we don't know that marriage takes more than that. We look on the outside, but we don't connect with what needs to be done on the inside. And when we don't love ourselves enough, when we haven't really experienced self love, everything you see and absorb is not your reality. It's just a belief that you have that that's the way things work. But we have to dive deep inside and find who we are. The more we connect to who we are, the more we're able to say, I know what my values are. I know what standards I want to live by. I know what my purpose is. I have a vision and a goal I want to accomplish. And that's what will lead you to finding someone who complements you and who is compatible and shares that same chemistry with you.
So, Kimmy, is there a difference between love and self love?
Love and self love are different in a sense that they're kind of tied together, but self love is that which focuses on us as an individual. When you're able to know that you don't keep a record of wrongs, you're kind to yourself, you protect yourself enough, you trust yourself. Most of the time we don't trust ourselves. We trust other people to be able to trust ourselves. But you have to trust yourself where any other person's trust does not matter to you as much as you trust yourself. And when we trust ourselves enough, we're able to know this move I want to make is not the best for me, because you're in tune with your spirit. Most of the time, we're not in tune with our spirit, mind, and body. There's no oneness. Everything is separate. We might have a body and a mind, which is the soul, together, but when you don't couple that with the spirit that God gives to us when we were born, you're not able to hear your inner voice guide you. You're just free flowing, and that's when you end up conforming to either the family tradition or the culture or what the world teaches us.
And that's an interesting point, especially with your background and coming from a different culture, a different continent, a different way of life. In your experience, in your growing up, in that initial relationship that had a tragic end to it, was there any peer pressure, or were there any cultural biases that was at work that led you to those relationships?
I was actually introduced to him by a friend of mine in high school. We were in final year in high school, and everybody was like, "You're not dating. This is final year high school. If you don't have a boyfriend, how would you go on? You're gonna go on to college, and if you don't start dating now, how would you know what to do when you get to college?" So I ended up going with, the peer pressure on me saying, "Okay, I'm introducing you to someone, date this guy." And that led me to the wrong path because I wasn't patient enough for what God had for me. And and when you're not patient enough, again, love is patient, and when you're not patient enough to experience what love really is, you get messed up.
Wow, that's some powerful information. So, as a professional life and relationship coach, but also as an international speaker, if you were speaking to 17-year-old Kimmy now, what words of wisdom would you impart on her if you were talking to her right now?
If I was talking to myself as a 17-year-old, I would tell myself to wait. There is no rush loving someone because it's a lifetime affair when you get into a relationship. You just don't want to date for dating's sake. You want to date because you're seeking for someone who is compatible, who shares chemistry, who will complement you. Why I said that is because we were created complete by God from the inception. And we don't need anyone to complete us, but we need someone to complement us, to be that helpmate, to help us, to push us and help us go forward and grow and accomplish our goals as well as fulfill our purpose together. So to my 17-year-old self, I would say be bold enough to learn to wait.
Wow, that's great wisdom. And on top of that, recognize that what is the purpose? What is the purpose of dating? I remember being 17, and I remember peer pressure, and I remember dating because everybody else was doing it, or it didn't matter. Sometimes it didn't even matter who you were dating. It was just
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to say I'm dating someone that gave you street cred, or that made you popular. And if you weren't dating anyone, then you were ostracized, or you were ridiculed.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get a date, or nobody likes you, or you're not handsome enough, or you're not cute enough, or you're not fine enough. All that teenage stuff that comes into play, and then we get into relationships for the wrong reason, like you said, and they don't all end up as tragic as yours was, but there are more than there should be. There's more than those shares of situations, especially in this new millennium where
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand what the no, what the word no means, or the peer pressure is even more extreme because of social media. People are more apt to go down the wrong road. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. And when you go down the wrong road, especially in this era that we're in of social media, like you said, you end up tying your soul to so many people because most of the time there's so much sexual engagement in relationship nowadays that people don't even value that you have to keep yourself pure. And with all the, like, I encourage, when I speak, I encourage my audience, don't think about the fact that somebody wants to just sleep with you and have sex with you. Think about how many people is this person doing the same thing to, and how about the diseases that exist that you don't even think about. That even if you protect yourself, you can still, you know, you can still get from the sexual encounter. with each other.
Okay. We are talking to professional life and relationship coach Kemi Sogunle. She is the author of four books, two of which are Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality, and Being Single, a State of the Fragile Heart. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about the fear as you take us through your story. We stopped off at the 17-year-old who went through that tragic experience, but you also mentioned you went into another relationship in which you ended up marrying the man and you ended up coming here to America. You're in Maryland now. Is that where you came to? And let's talk about the married part of your life.
I initially lived in New York when I arrived in the US. And it was, I think, my third day or my second day here that I realized, oh, I think I've made the biggest mistake in my life.
Wow.
And
Why
at
was
that
that?
point, there were signs I saw that made me realize that I shouldn't have really just gotten into a marriage at that stage because I didn't really know what it entailed. And for me, it was more of, oh my goodness, what have I done to myself? You know, you have that awareness of something isn't right. But I contacted my mom and she said, it's too early. You can't really know yet. But deep in my heart, I knew I had taken a leap that I shouldn't have taken. And I kind of, you know, went through it for 15 years together with him. And when I couldn't take it anymore, I had to leave. I didn't just leave. I was actually co-leading a prayer team, and one of the women I was mentoring was the one who noticed and called the cops. And I voluntarily said I was going to get help from the crisis center, and I was going to work with my coach at the crisis center, and also find a way to leave on my own.
So there were things that happened during these 15 years of marriage that required you reaching out to the crisis center?
I did not directly reach out to them. I was mentoring somebody in the church prayer team, prayer group, women's prayer group, and she actually came to the house. She never really came to the house before, but she came to the house during that time, and she was like, "You need to run for your life." And I was like, "Run from what?" And prior to that, a lot of my friends, other people had noticed, and they will kind of drop, you know, a word or two with me saying something isn't right about where you are. But I used to put up the facade, like I said initially. We always have this front out there saying that we have it all together, but deep inside, I was not together.
Understood. Were you discovering self during that time, or did that come after the relationship?
I discovered who I was after the relationship. I had to go through a soul searching 6 to 8 months period where I spent myself in. I actually isolated myself because I was also given the permission to work from home at that time. I had gone from a size 12 to a size 2, and I my boss just didn't want to see me the way I was at that time, so she gave me the privilege to work from home for 6 to 8 months. And it was during that time I kind of wrestled out with God in a soul searching encounter with Him. And I found who I was. I was tracing my steps back to the very beginning of my journey. And that was how I found who I was.
And as now, as a professional life and relationship coach, is that something you would recommend to somebody right now?
I always recommend that anyone who is stuck works with a coach, because what coaches do is help you find the answers from within. They kind of guide you through the process. That was what my coaches did with me. They guided me through the process where I was able to think through myself. And most of the time when I left the session, it also gave me the opportunity to kind of wrestle with God and say, what is it? Why did I go through all of this? And at the end of it, I came to that awareness of what my purpose is, which is helping other people and supporting other people through coaching. And I recommend to anyone who is stuck at this moment to do the same thing, because there is no reason for us to be stuck. But what keeps us stuck is the fear that we have, fear of what people will say about us, fear of the unknown.
Fear of being alone, fear of having to make it on your own,
No.
fear of you're not enough, fear that you're not good enough.
No.
So
Hmm.
so many different fears, and I like how you talked about that. You found through coaching that you were the person that could coach other people through this same situation. And as a coach myself, as the unstoppable coach, it's a very similar story because I, I've had coaching myself, and it's through coaching that I was able to discover the different talents, abilities, and gifts that I had that I was taking for granted in the
Hmm.
past. And so, for different people, there's different things that you either have to go through or you have to see in order to get to the next level of your greatness. It's unfortunate you had to go through some of the tragedies that you had to go through to get to this point, but thank God you're not who you used to be, and thank God that you are the person that you are today, and you're able to now tell this story of how you overcame and now how you're helping people overcome in their lives. So thank you for that. Let's talk about when you actually started opening your shingle as the professional life and relationship coach. When did that occur?
That started in 2011.
Okay.
After I had gone through my healing process, and I decided this was my calling, and I got trained to become a coach. I decided my purpose is, I found that my purpose is to help other people. So I started to coach. Initially, I had two clients that I was working with, because I didn't want to do the big scale thing at first. I was still kind of nervous at first about, can I really coach someone? And the first person who came to me was through Facebook. She lives in Ireland, and she was like, "Oh, you know what? I really want you to coach me." And when we initially started, she was like, "Oh, you're gonna make me dig through some things I don't want to touch." And I said, "Until you overcome those things, you cannot really get to where you need to be. You can't get to the next level, because we can't just shove things underneath the rug and think that, if we cover them up, we can continue to live. They'll keep oozing out gradually and hurting us in the process. So we have to do away with everything." And the day she had a aha moment, it was so funny, because it was just one simple question I asked, and she broke down. And she like broke down seriously, and we 45-minute session went to a 2-hour session, because
Can
I couldn't leave her at that point.
can you share the question or is it too personal?
It's very personal.
Okay. All right. But isn't it amazing how one question you can go through many, many, many sessions? You can go through a whole lot of minutia, and then just the right question just brings awareness to the situation.
It's very amazing. That was exactly what happened to me as well. It was just one question for me over a period of time. The same question kept, resurfacing, and I tried to avoid the question, but I realized that God was just using my coach at that time to help me get to that question. Even though I tried to, like, shove it off and say, we don't need to go there, that's too private. But until I was able to overcome my fear of holding on and covering up, and allowing God to use her to help me become free, I wouldn't have been where I am today.
Oh, that's so great. There's a quote that says, "You'll never get the right answer until you ask the right question." And many times we go through life, we ask the wrong questions. Oh, why is this happening to me? Or why am I going through this? Or why am I broke? Or why can't I have the relationship that he has or the relationship that she has? When sometimes the right question is just, why am I not feeling that I'm deserving of that relationship? Why am I not in love with myself? And how can I share love with somebody else if I don't even love myself? Is that some of the things you run into as now a professional life and relationship coach with your clients?
Those are some of the things I run into, especially with the relationship aspect. Everybody wants to compare. Oh, why can't I have like my sister or my friend? And I'm always like, everyone is different. What are the lessons you need to learn to grow before you
Yes.
get to that place? And it's not going to be the same relationship as your friend or your sister or your brother has, because yours is unique to you. And we don't have to compare our lives with everybody. We all have different purposes in life. The key is to connecting with your purpose and figuring out what is it for you.
Oh, I love it. We're spending time with professional life and relationship coach Kemi Sogunle on the Next Level Living Show with Coach Terrance. So tell me, Kemi, were you a coach first and then an author, or were you an author first, then a coach, then a speaker? How did all these things come together?
I was an author first.
Okay.
It was in between me becoming an author that I started training to become a coach. And then I woke up one morning and God put a word in my heart and I started to share on Facebook. And then I started getting calls to speak on virtual sessions, on virtual conferences. And then in August this year, I actually got sponsored to London to speak at two different venues. One was a 3-day event, and the other one was a 1-day event. And I actually asked God, because with me, I spoke first in May at a live event in New Jersey. And after that, I spoke somewhere in Baltimore in July. And then in August was the international one came up. And with me, I don't prepare anything I have to say because God just speaks through me. Um, the first one I had to prepare, I had to read my paper off and say, you know what? This isn't what God wants to do. I had to go with the flow. And that's why I said initially that when we know who we are and we align our body, our soul, and our spirit together, we can hear our spirit speak to us and we obtain clarity and we're able to know which direction to go.
So what kind of topics do you speak on when you speak?
I speak on self love. I speak on marriage doesn't change me, because sometimes we try to change ourselves to fit into marriage, but we have to be true to who we are. I also speak on the art of dating and mastering the signs during dating. I speak on abuse and domestic violence, and I speak on finding yourself.
Okay. So tell us about the book. When did you write your first book, and how did you decide to become an author?
I had no plans becoming an author. I started writing in 2013. I actually wrote in 2013. I journaled all the 4 books that I wrote, and then I started to compile them. And in between my compiling them, I would share on Facebook with my friends a nugget here or two, and everybody started saying, "No, you need to write this book because what you're sharing is so deep, and a lot of people will need it." And at that time, I didn't really pay any attention. And I really got 4 of my friends stay on my case. So I decided, you know what? Let me write Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality. I normally don't have topics for my book, but during my compiling them, God just gives me what to name, to title the book, and I go with it. And when I published Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality in November, actually, it's going to be 1 year tomorrow that Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality became published. I got a lot of feedback from people saying, Oh my gosh, you don't know what you've done with this book. I had a review done by uh, a radio producer in Vegas.
Okay.
And when I got that review from him, he read the book and he sent me a review. I was like, oh my gosh, this book was huge, but God had me cut it down to 64 pages. And I didn't know what 64 pages meant to anyone. But when he sent me the review, he said, I read your book, but that 64-page book is a lifetime book. And he said, this is a book my wife and I continue to read over and over again. And then I had more men inboxing me saying, we bought your book, and oh my gosh, we didn't realize that we needed this so bad. And that was when it dawned on me that this is my purpose, to help other people get unstuck, to help other people, move from where they are to where they need to be in life, to let them realize that they have to leave, not just exist. And then I got a call in August this year letting me know that my book was nominated for 2 awards. Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality was nominated for 2 awards. And at that time, I was getting ready to release Being Single, and my mouth was just ajar. I got a star award from a nonprofit organization that actually sells my book to people all over the world. And I also got an award from Howard County, Maryland, for Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality being the best book in building self-esteem category. I never really expected, me to win anything. I didn't even know the book was gonna go the way it went. But I'm able to realize that when God has a calling on your life, when God shows you what your purpose is, you just have to go with him.
Right. To God be the glory. And it's the epitome of the phrase, good things come in small packages, because
Packages.
64 pages can pack a lifetime of powerful nuggets. And it's a good thing. The one thing about a book is that you can read a book over and over again. And each time you read that book, you get a different message, or you learn a little nugget, or
Mhm.
you're at a different place in your time where you can relate to something else in that book that you didn't relate to the first time you did it. So I'm proud of you for getting that out there, and following the voice of God, and following His lead. And look how He is just blessed you as a result of that. And we want to take the a little bit of time before we end to really touch on some of the things that you had in your book. You had three things that you wanted to share with our audience a little bit. We talked a little bit about the fear, and we talked a little bit about self-love, but you really talk about in all of your books, you talk about not losing oneself. Tell us what you mean by that.
When you don't know who you are, it's very, very easy to lose yourself because you end up going with what other people tell you. For example, dating. A boyfriend may say, I want you to do this, 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 and it may not be in line with your standards, and you may not even have any standards at that point. Because I've had several clients say to me, what are standards? And when you don't have standards for your life, you lose yourself by trying to please other people. You forget who you are, you forget why you were created, you forget your values, your goals, your vision for your life. And the key is not getting lost in the process, but finding who you are, connecting with your spirituality, aligning your goals, visions, and dreams with your values and your standards. Where do you want to be 5 to 10 years from now? What do you want to accomplish in life? What is your purpose? Because when you know those things, it becomes easier to connect to someone else who shares the same value. Deep can call onto deep, iron can sharpen iron. But when you don't know and you get lost in the process, no one can sharpen you. You subject yourself to abuse, you subject yourself to domestic violence, and you just become someone who any other person can control. You lose control of who you are.
Yeah, it's important to have those values, and it's important to set some standards not only for yourself but for those relationships. But Kimmy, obviously you've dealt with this. The clients have come to you and they asked you the blunt question, "What are standards?" So after you explain that to them, how do you suggest someone go about setting standards in their life if they've never done it before?
What I normally say is you ask yourself those deep questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What do I want to accomplish? What is it about me that I need for myself? And when you know what your needs are, needs are separate from wants. Wants are temporary, needs are long term. When you know what your needs are to accomplish your goals in life, you're able to set your standards based on those. And those can frequently change as you grow up, because, at 30, what you need is different from what you need at 40 or 50. So you have to constantly readdress your standards like every 6 months, reevaluate them and readdress them and realign them with where you are. And once you know what your standards are, it's easy for you to meet someone and say, oh, he doesn't match up. For example, you're a six-figure salary, earner, and someone who doesn't have a job walks up to you and says, I want to date you. You have to look and say, we're not at that place yet, because you have to get your life together. But when you don't have standards and you don't know who you are, you might think, oh yeah, I can help him, I can be the sole winner of the house, I can do this, and he or she doesn't have to worry. But a relationship isn't about just dating. It's about two people coming together to become one. And when you become one, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. You both have to contribute. So if you decide, because you don't have standards, you want to take over the whole 200, you become overburdened and you become worn out easily.
That's some great nuggets there that you said at the end. Definitely, and too many times people fall for the okey doke where they say
Yeah.
a relationship is 50-50. Not at all. It is 100-100. And the thing about relationships, especially if you're in a good relationship, especially if you're in a fulfilling relationship, especially if you're in a long-term fulfilling relationship, those are all three different things. You'll get
Mm-hmm.
that after this broadcast. If you're in that type of relationship, you will understand that on Monday, your 100% may be the only thing that's carrying this whole relationship. On Tuesday, the other person's 100% may be the only thing that's carrying this relationship. On Wednesday, you might have 60% and the other person might have 40%, but you're weak. You allow the other person to be strong where you're
Stronger.
weak, and you allow yourself to be strong when they're weak. But if you're always given 100% of the best you each and every day in that relationship, then that's what makes the great relationship. That's what makes the long lasting relationships. But you said something before you talked about that I want to come back to, because do we or do you encounter as a professional life and relationship coach that people have different standards, say, for their job or their finances than they do for their relationships? And is that okay?
I have encountered only two clients that did that, but I'm always saying this, I'm always going back to this. Everything you do has to be aligned. You can't have a higher standards for finances and have a low standard for your career. Everything has to be on the same level, because
Okay.
if you have higher standards for finances, you're going to be looking for somebody to fulfill that standard, because your career doesn't match up with the finance standard you set for yourself. So it's more of you craving for something outside your realm. And when you do that, you subject yourself again to being used and dumped, because the partner you're looking for that will fulfill that financial goal may not necessarily want you knowing that you're not on that level yourself.
Cool. All right. And you also talk about in your book, you talk about self love and you talk about fear. But I love the title, Being Single, a State of the Fragile Heart. What do you mean by the state of a fragile heart?
A state of for the fragile heart is when you don't know who you are. At that time, you're fragile. You're vulnerable. It is necessary to be vulnerable all the time, but you're at the highest level of vulnerability at that time. So you just go with the flow. You subject yourself to anything that comes because you don't know who you are. You go with what the culture, the society, your friends, family, and the world tells you about relationships. Oh, you don't have to, be this to get in a relationship. Oh, just look at Jessica Alba. She has it all right. And you can be the same. And you just go with what you see, Hollywood vibes and whatever is out there. And the more you do that, the more you yield to pressure, and the more you get lost in the process. But when you come to the awareness of who you are, you end up knowing what your purpose is, and you end up only trying to make sure that you meet somebody who shares your purpose. And when you both come together, you complement each other and pull each other up at every point in time. Iron sharpens iron, deep calls unto deep, and you grow together in love. Because when you don't know who you are, you don't know what love is.
Excellent, excellent explanation. So we're talking to professional life and relationship coach Kemi Sogunle, and she also is the founder and the CEO of her own nonprofit called Love Not Hurt. Tell us a little bit about the purpose of your nonprofit.
Love Not Hurt was started after I fully healed, and after I got started this year because I had clients come to me that couldn't pay for coaching. And I put myself in their shoes saying, if this was me going to a coach and I couldn't afford coaching and I was turned back, what will God have me do? So I started the nonprofit to actually focus more on the teenagers that, are just starting out right from high school, don't know what relationship is, getting into a relationship, becoming broken. And we've seen, cases where there's so much shooting and killing because somebody left someone and started to date somebody else, and they're angry about that. So I decided, let me start a nonprofit that would help them at that age start to develop themselves, not only them, but their parents as well, because you have parents who have been broken, and because they've been broken, they can't really handle the teenagers or the young adults and kind of guide them in the right path. Let me start where we focus on breaking out into sessions during workshops, session for the girls, session for the boys, and the parents as well, three different sessions, and bringing everyone together. And then, you know, doing a think tank session where we all kind of interact with each other and help each other learn as much as possible on self growth, self development, and loving ourselves prior to building other relationships with other people.
Okay. And do this take where do these take place? In the Maryland area, and how often do they take place?
We're starting in the Maryland area coming 2016, and we're hoping to do 4 or 5 states in 2016, as well as we're planning to also go international in 2016 or 2017. And I'll be putting out that information once we have everything mapped out on the states we will be going to, as well as where in Maryland, the venues in Maryland where we'll be using.
Fabulous. And how can someone support your nonprofit and the great work that you're doing with Love Not Hurt?
They can make donations. Right now, we need as much as possible to help us reserve venues and also plan out conferences that can empower other people. If you go to lovenotHurt.org, you can make your donations via our website to support us. You can also if you're in another state and you're watching, you can also support us by bringing us to your state and organizing an event on our behalf, and we'll be more than willing to come out and share with the community on self development and building healthier relationships.
And if someone wants to get in contact with you, Kimmy, for personal life and relationship coaching, how can they reach out to you for that? And what specific services may they be able to get from you?
Currently, I support singles, young adults, singles, those separated, those divorced. I also support grief, those that have lost loved ones with grief coaching. And I also have coaching programs for marriage conflict issues. And they can easily find me on my website, kemionline.com, KEMI online, all one word.com. I'm
Okay.
also on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, so I'm easy to find with my first name and my last name.
Fantastic. So we're going to give you the last word before we wrap this up. So this is your showcase. This is your time. What is it that you want to leave with our audience tonight, Kimmy?
One word for the singles is to embrace your singleness. Singleness is not a disease. Singleness is a time to connect with yourself and find who you are and love yourself enough prior to getting into a relationship. For those married, I will leave the word marriage does not change who you are. Do not let being married make you also feel like you have to subject yourself to anyone. It's a partnership. It's not a controlling, situation. It's a partnership. Don't feel you have to dominate. You have to work together to make it work, and you always have to communicate in love, not in hurt.
I love it. So, so they can reach out to you at kimmyonline.com. That's one way they can reach out to you, or they can reach out to you through your nonprofit at lovenot hurt.org. Is there a phone number you want to relay, or just reach out to you through those two websites?
I can give a phone number. They can also reach me on 443-741-1249. 443-741-1249. And they can
Excellent.
also get my books. My books are everywhere: Amazon, Kindle, Nook, iBooks, CreateSpace, Smashwords, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, and on my website.
And go ahead and name all those books again.
Love, Sex, Lies, and Reality, and Being Single: A State for the Fragile Heart.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Kemi Sogunle, for spending some time with the Next Level Living Show. We love all that you're doing. We are so glad to be able to share your story with our audience and to really talk about self-love, discovering self before you get into that relationship, learning how to overcome the fear, learning how to not lose yourself in a relationship, and recognizing that love doesn't have to hurt, but it is the state of a fragile heart if you don't know yourself first. So thank you for sharing that. Anytime you want to come back to the Next Level Living Show, our doors are wide open for you. And as you move into the programming with the nonprofit in 2016, would you come back and share that information with us?
I would absolutely love to come back. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. That's Kemi Sogunle on the Next Level Living Show with Coach Terrance. And as always, we want to leave you with our unstoppable thought for the week. We thank Kemi so much for being on the show. We thank her for her powerful message of being single, being okay with being single. Single's not a disease. It's okay to bring yourself into the marriage. Don't lose yourself in a marriage. And it's okay to be in relationship. You know, when you break down the word relationship, you've got relation and you've got ship. And when I think of a ship, I don't think of just an empty ship. I think of a ship full of people. I think of a ship full of interaction. I love going on cruises because every time I go on cruises, they're so lively, and there's a lot of people going here and there, but there are people interacting with others. They are in relation with others. But sometimes you're on those ships and you can see people that are out by themselves, maybe sitting in the corner looking out a window or behind the stairs, not really wanting to be seen. I equate that with the person who hasn't found themselves and the person who's confident in themselves. See, when we don't know ourselves, we kind of shy away from the crowd. We shy away from relationship because we don't know who we are. Therefore, we don't know who we're bringing to the table. Or we'll come out and we'll show somebody our representative, Mr. Representative, Mrs. Representative. We show them the person that we want them to think we are. But you can't run from yourself. You can't hide from yourself. No matter what you do, you're always there. Every time you look in the mirror, you see yourself, but you choose to decide to see yourself as you are or as the person you want to be. So before you decide to get into relationship with someone else, make sure you get in relationship with self. Find out who you are. Find out what you stand for. Find out what you won't stand for. Find out what makes you whole, and then find that person that, as Kimmy says, that can complement you. Or as I say, find that person that enhances you. You don't want anyone to complete you. You want someone to come in and enhance what you already have. If you find out who you are and what you stand for and who you will be in this world, loving yourself before you go to love someone else, then I guarantee you, you are setting yourself up for some unstoppable relationships. And as I leave you, you know what I always say? I want you to dream big, aim high, and believe in the impossible, and never, ever settle for less when you can be unstoppable. I'm Terrance, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge. I don't want you to just have a great week. I want you to have an unstoppable week. And here's to living your life on the next level. Take care.